Story 1. Decapitated, the whole big thing. We had a funeral for a bird. Story 2. You know that worthless cryptocurrency you were mining on your Windows 7 netbook? Yes, it is worth about $65,000 per coin now. Story 3. Probably that Back to the Future Part 2 played out, but the Chicago Cubs won 1 year later. Biff became president, and everything went further downhill. Edit to add. How could I forget? Hoverboards do not really hover and sometimes catch fire. Also, remember that weird kid in class? He grew up to have more money than almost everyone combined and used it to buy a social media platform so he could troll people and make a magical truck he drew once in 2nd grade that his mom displayed on the fridge. He just wanted to make his mother happy. Story 4. George R. Martin still has not finished A Song of Ice and Fire. Oh sorry, most surprising. Prices rose, politicians philandered, and we all got old. Story 5. Tell him only good things about his achievements. Nothing else matters. Story 6. Someone decided to breed a golden retriever with a poodle, and now they are everywhere. Story 7. Everyone now has a GPS navigation system built into their cell phone, and it works really well. Story 8. Leicester won the Premier League. They would be convinced they woke up in some alternate universe. Story 9. Donald Trump was the President of the United States for a period. Additionally, the Queen of England passed away. Story 10. I am sorry to inform you that Betty White has passed away. Things will never be the same. Story 11. Just because there is a video of someone saying it does not mean they actually said it. Story 12. Skyrim is now on its 7th re-release, and we still do not have the Elder Scrolls 6 yet. Story 13. Well, iPods do not exist anymore, and neither do telephone books. Digital cameras are now integrated into mobile phones. Story 14. Personally, if I woke up from that coma, what would surprise me the most would be the state of today's internet, how much it has changed since then, and how it has lost its coolness and sleek designs for uniform corporate styles. Everyone has smartphones and does almost everything with them. People rarely use computers to access the internet now because they just use their smartphones. Our purchasing power has significantly decreased. Waking up from 2010's purchasing power to 2024's would be shocking for anyone. Story 15. Finally, you would not believe how long someone has been trying to contact you about your car's extended warranty. Story 16. The man from the television show The Apprentice is the greatest threat to global democracy we have seen in 80 years. Story 17. You know those old jokes? Well, they came true. Donald Trump was President of the United States. Story 18. Betty White and Queen Elizabeth have passed away. Also, regarding the man from The Apprentice. Story 19. You do not flag a taxi anymore. You get into a stranger's car through an app called Uber. Story 20. After the person gets over the initial shock that artificial intelligence can hold a lucid conversation with a human, create still images and videos with sound, compose music, and more. Story 21. You just missed the end of Supernatural. Kind of a disappointing ending. Story 22. It must be 2016. I do not want to jump on the bandwagon, but you cannot get more surprising than the Chicago Cubs winning a World Series. Story 23. 5 years after you slipped into a coma, the world became involved in an all-consuming argument over whether a dress was blue or gold. The argument still rages on 9 years later. Story 24. Probably the fact that they have to learn to walk and talk all over again, if it is even possible. Story 25. The man from the television show The Apprentice was the President of the United States. Some unusual events occurred, and now he is attempting to become president again. Story 26. You do realize you are worth $50 million because you bought some Bitcoin on a whim? Story 27. The price of groceries alone will overwhelm them. Story 28. I am really not sure anything can top Donald Trump was elected President of the United States. Story 29. That Barack Obama did not solve racism, which many of us naively believed at the time. Story 30. Julie Noke has a great handle on what you are trying to answer in a humorous way. Story 31. You missed the rapture. I am sorry, but you did not make the cut. Story 32. They elected Donald Trump as president. Explain to them that there was a worldwide pandemic that lasted more than 2 years. Story 33. Welcome to Purgatory. I will tell you everything you need to know. Story 34. Bill Cosby went to prison and Donald Trump became president. Story 35. The man from The Apprentice is running for president, and the man from Fear Factor has significant influence in cultural and political spaces. Story 36. You know those 100 bitcoins you were going to sell for a pizza that night before you were hit by the car? Well, let me tell you, you lucky person. Story 37. Go back to sleep, buddy. You'll never be able to pay off your bills. You thought it was hard in 2010. It's harder now. You also missed a global pandemic where millions of people died. The Queen died. The house you were looking at is now 10 times the price it was when you went into a coma, and you're unemployed. The company you worked at went under during coronavirus disease 2019. That was the pandemic. We have unreliable artificial intelligence now that creates bad art and misleads people who think it is a reliable source to identify plants and fungi. But we have squishmallows now, and I brought you one. Story 38. Washington, Oregon, University of Southern California, and University of California, Los Angeles are Big Ten schools now. Story 39. Everyone watches short videos on their phone everywhere. Story 40. You are the only person who is not addicted to your phone. Story 41. Finally, you would not believe how long someone has been trying to reach you about your car's extended warranty. Story 42. Carrie Fisher, Abe Vigada, Alan Rickman, Prince, David Bowie, Debbie Reynolds, and many other celebrities died in 2016. Story 43. That Donald Trump was elected president once, and that he is running again after having lost the previous elections. The race is going to be close. Any normal person would go into a coma upon hearing that. Story 44. Donald Trump was president. There is a technology called artificial intelligence. Grand Theft Auto 6 is not yet released. Story 45. The Supreme Court has corrupt members and has declared the president has immunity for crimes committed during his or her administration. Story 46. Donald Trump was the president. That and COVID-19. Story 47. The leading candidate for the presidency of the United States has been convicted of crimes and is currently on trial for additional charges. Furthermore, it is Donald Trump who has previously served as president. Story 48. The Warner brothers and sisters are running for president. Story 49. Donald Trump became the president of the United States. He might become the president of the United States again. Story 50. Katy Perry has been performing poorly on the music charts. Story 51. Wow. Where do we start? Surprise, there was a worldwide pandemic and millions of people died. Millions of people don't even believe it was real. Donald Trump was the president. He shared artificial intelligence-generated pictures of Taylor Swift endorsing him. Artificial intelligence is a technology now, but it is not true artificial intelligence. It uses data from across the internet to create misleading content, such as telling people to put glue in their pizza. Russia is invading Ukraine, and the Taliban took over Afghanistan. For some reason, kids really like a video about a person's head coming out of a toilet. Also, you can turn into a cat on your webcam now, I guess. Story 52. Actually, maybe just explain how much social media has taken over in general. Because Instagram was just getting started in 2010. I don't even think I had one until 2011 or 2012. Story 53. Aliens are real, or rather, they have been officially acknowledged. Story 54. Imagine being broke in 2010, but right before you fell into a 14-year coma, you bought like 1,000 Bitcoin. That is a big win. Story 55. Either COVID-19 or Donald Trump becoming president, potentially twice. Story 56. Everyone is talking about Betty White, the Queen, and Donald Trump. But really, would any of that be so surprising? In 2010, Betty White was 88. The Queen was 84. Donald Trump had run for president before, and in 2010, it was shortly after the Bush administration and Sarah Palin being John McCain's running mate. What would surprise someone the most would probably be things like the scale of the coronavirus disease pandemic, technological advancements, and the modern internet landscape. It would be waking up to hear that a global pandemic killed 7 million people, that your smartphone has a 48 megapixel camera and 512 gigabyte storage as a standard option, that the newest video games have become so high definition, with 8,000 graphics that we barely have monitors to display them, that there is a satellite array in orbit providing internet to nearly anywhere on the planet, that influencer and content creator are real, lucrative jobs for millions of people. The trends were there for many of these things, sure, but to see them actually take root on a large scale seemingly overnight would be unbelievable. Story 57. The fact that they shut down most of the world during coronavirus disease and that you can now have a fluent conversation with your computer at the intellectual level of a university student. Story 58. The world has gone mad. Would you like to go back to sleep? Story 59. I knew a man who went to jail in 2010. He was released early this year. He was scammed 3 times in the first 3 weeks. Mobile applications and smartphones are all new to him. He does not know how the Uber service works. Story 60. In the United States, we have same-sex marriage in every state, but we lost Roe versus Wade. They are not related. Story 61. There was a worldwide quarantine and it disrupted everything. Story 62. You need to be a millionaire to afford a home now. McChickens are $5 now. Story 63. It is not the same, but I have known people who have spent time in prison and had a similar experience. One person I met did not know what the internet was before going in and was released in the late 2000s. Story 64. I am going to just bash his head. It is better to die peacefully. Story 65. I won't say anything. I will just play Fart by Ice Spice, and that will tell it all. Story 66. Feyenoord were 2-time champions of the Netherlands since you were in a coma. Story 67. The Democratic nominee for president this year received 0 votes in the primaries. Story 68. The Chicago Bears have not won a playoff game in a long time. Story 69. Both Cindy and Kathy Beale being back from the dead would shock a long-term EastEnders fan if they had been in a coma. Story 70. A game show host revealed the worst of America by running for president and nearly started the Second Civil War. Story 71. The Chicago Cubs, Washington Nationals, and Kansas City Royals have won a World Series since you have been away. The New York Yankees have not. Story 72. Next year, Barack Obama completely roasts Donald Trump at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and it is hilarious, but it somewhat backfires. Story 73. We peaked in 2016, and after a gorilla named Harambe died, it all went down. Story 74. I am honestly so exhausted by all of this. I am going to say, nothing, how are you? Story 75. The future. The polar ice caps have melted, covering the earth with water. Those who survived have adapted to a new world. Story 76. We have neither hope nor change. Go back to sleep. You are better off than the rest of us right now. Story 77. Things stayed the same for the first 6 years while you were in a coma. Then, the Cincinnati Zoo and Botanical Garden shot one of their gorillas, Harambe, for not harming a child who crawled into his enclosure. After that, life became a downward roller coaster of difficulties beyond imagination. Many good men still honor the fallen gorilla in their own way. Story 78. The global human population increased by more than 1 billion during the time you were in a coma. It is also still growing nearly as fast. Story 79. 99% of the world population died from a disease, and you have an antibody that will cure everyone. Story 80. 1-877 KRS4 Kids is still on the radio all the time. Story 81. The actor who had a cameo in Home Alone now has a cult following. Story 82. I don't really know where to start except that he trails off into tears but starts anew. Carrie Fisher and David Bowie are dead. Story 83. Hello. My mother was in a 6-month coma after being hit by a drunk driver when she was 16. She couldn't ask many questions when she woke up, terrified and with permanent retrograde amnesia. She told me she was terrified, that what people said to her made little sense. She thought she knew some words spoken to her, but not really. She didn't know who she was, what a name was, that she had one, what a doctor was, and recognized no one. It was not the sort of situation where she would ask what happened while she was unconscious. Despite a very shattered body and memory loss, she made a complete physical recovery, much better than the predictions that she would not live or would be a lifelong vegetable if she did. I have seen the scars on her body, the paperwork from the hospital, the crash photos, the newspaper articles, and heard the stories from my aunts and uncles about helping her relearn everything. This ranged from language. She said it was more like being reminded of things she should have known, to how to tie her shoes, to reading and writing again, as well as learning how to walk and talk. It was sad that, to her, they were all strangers. She did not know them. The positive aspect is that she reestablished family bonds with all her siblings over time. It probably helped that they all pitched in to help her. My grandparents were convinced she would die and had thrown out all her things, so jogging her memory was not much of a priority. She does remember a few things from her childhood now, but it took decades to resurface. Most of it is permanently gone. She definitely did not wake up from her coma saying, "What's up, dudes? What did I miss?" Story 84. People who take pictures of their own food have influenced popular culture. Story 85. Sunday paper is no longer useful for classified advertisements. It is difficult to find a place to live easily anymore. Additionally, the rates are 5 times higher. Story 86. Television screens are no longer cathode ray tube screens. They are flat screens. Story 87. There is a movie where Rebel Wilson wakes up years later after a high school accident. Her funniest struggle was understanding the current vocabulary for queer people, people with disabilities, and people of color. I would give them an English lesson on acceptable and unacceptable words. Story 88. Many famous people have died. Some famous people are actually evil and bad. The prices of things are not the same. The media have changed, both for better and worse. The political spectrum has proven to be ineffective and foolish. I would not have wanted to learn any of these. Story 89. You can have a penis but unironically call yourself a girl, and actually people will believe you. I imagine they would find the number of biology deniers in the year 2024 to be astounding. Story 90. They announced Grand Theft Auto 6. Bloons Tower Defense has versions 5 and 6 now. That funny block game is the best thing on the market and is now owned by Microsoft. O.J. Simpson is dead. Muhammad Ali is dead. Prince and Carrie Fisher are dead. Sandy and several other storms repeatedly battered the coast. That guy on The Apprentice was president for 4 years and is saying the last election was stolen. He was impeached twice, convicted of 34 felonies, and can still run. Pretty much every YouTuber you knew is now outed as a pedophile, dead, or faded into irrelevance. Beetlejuice still hasn't exploded yet. We found a drug that could potentially destroy many types of cancer. Steve Jobs is dead. The Queen is dead. Stephen Hawking is dead. Amy Winehouse is dead. A guy named Mr. Beast emerged. YouTube is entirely different now, bought out by Google. Steam became very popular. Roblox is back. We have self-driving cars. We will probably have people back on the moon next year. Any questions? Story 91. There is a garden tool with a good chance of being chosen. Story 92. Donald Trump became the President of the United States, and he might do it again. Story 93. People of all genders can experience a wide range of biological responses. Welcome to 2024. Story 94. Good luck convincing them that the entire pandemic and United States elections actually happened. Crazy times. Story 95. Donald Trump was elected president by a party dedicated to conservative social morality. Story 96. We are so used to the madness that a person waking up from a coma would probably surprise us with their reaction to how disillusioned we are and how much weirder and colder the world has become. I would tell them that there are a lot of forest fires nowadays, happening everywhere quite often. Oh, and storms. Can't forget the storms. and floods. School shootings are rather common in the United States. There is often some kind of terror attack out of the blue. Not like September 11th, but occasionally a truck will run over people or someone will place a bomb in the subway and so on. Just basic, everyday occurrences. A very old and obnoxious orange businessman was the president of the United States for a while. He does not accept loss and has convinced almost half the population that the election system is rigged. His personal unofficial motto is "grab them by the genitals." He also likes to call his opponents criminals. People are fine with this. There is a war in Europe as Vladimir Putin tries to reestablish the former Soviet Union's glory. Nazism and fascism are making a comeback in Europe, disguised as populism, of course. I feel like we live in the movie Logan. It is not totally post-apocalyptic like Mad Max, but it is still a rather grim place. The good guys are marginalized, beaten up, and aged. We all try to live our lives as usual, but deep down we know the near future is bleak. Maybe the younger generation will have a chance. Superhero movies were actually good for a while. Then everything turned into lazy multiverse stories. Do not get into that. Logan is good though. Watch that. Streaming and watching movies and series is rather easy. I mean, you need 1,000 different subscriptions, but internet connection is really good. So that's one thing. Story 97. There are many genders and pronouns now. Please be careful with the pronouns you use. Story 98. The "you're fired" guy from television is a twice partially impeached former president who finished his term and is currently running again. I forgot to mention he is also now a convicted felon. Disclaimer. This is merely an answer to the post, as I believe this would be fairly shocking to hear. Story 99. We have time traveled back to the 1920s. There is war in Europe. We have had an epidemic. The economy has rampant inflation. The United States of America is engaging with Nazism just like Germany. Story 100. Honestly, I think the most surprising thing would be Donald Trump being president with a real chance of winning this year. Story 101. We killed Osama bin Laden, but that was not close to the end of our troubles. Story 102. Welcome back. Smartphones are now everywhere. Social media has taken over, and the world has faced significant changes like the coronavirus disease 2019 pandemic. It is like waking up in a science fiction movie. Story 103. Somehow we managed to make a two-faced, grifting, cheating, lying Oompa Loompa the President of the United States. Story 104. All the things Donald Trump has done, and not only is he not in prison, but almost half the population supports him for another term as president. Story 105. Remember how we used to think the Tea Party was over the top and extreme? Well, Story 106. It will not matter what you say. He will experience the world and then harm himself. It is a brave new difficult world. Story 107. Jesus may actually be real. The news about the Shroud of Turin is very interesting at the moment. Story 108. For all your emotional distress, it did not matter in the slightest who was president, regardless of their gender or skin color. Story 109. Biff from Back to the Future Part 2, which was released in 1989, became president for a while and nearly destroyed the Constitution. Story 110. Donald Trump was president, and it was a total disaster, much worse than you could possibly imagine. Story 111. The man on the Wheaties box has undergone gender reassignment and is now a woman. Story 112. Sorry, I was with your girlfriend, your sister, and your mother. Story 113. Watch out, there are a billion times more people with tattoos than there were 14 years ago. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.